Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Mridanga player should be close. Close by. Kartal, Mridanga. Yeah. Yes. Okay. That's okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Jamuna Thira Panachari Jamuna Thira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Gaur Premanande, Jayam Vishnupada, Paramahamsa, Tri Vrajgacharya Stotra Satya, Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhai Charananda Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Sri Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, ISKCON DBT, Founder Srila Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakayam Taksuramiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Vrishabhanusute Pranamame Hare Priye Vansakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara, Narayana Rishi, the Supremost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
दक्षिण क्लास का हिंदी अनुवाद FM 108 पे चल रहा है.
Nasta Prayesha Badrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreya Sayalokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Granthara, as the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinatharanam. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinatharanam. Hare Krishna. I would like to welcome everyone to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. And today we have on the board one verse from the third canto, chapter 1, entitled Questions by Vidura. And which text is on the board? 5 or 6?
5.
5, huh? Okay. Sutta Uvacha Sa Evam Rishi Varyo Yam Pristo Rajna Parakshita Pratyaha Tam Sabuhu Subahu Vit Pritatma Sruyatam Iti Sutta Uvacha Saevam Rishi Varyoyam Kristo Rajna Parikshita Pratyahatam Subahuvit Pritatma Sruyatam Iti Sutta Uvacha Saevam Rishi Varyoyam Kristo Rajna Parikshita Pratyahatam Subahuvit Pritatma Sruyatam Iti Sutta Uvacha Saevam Rishi Varyoyam Kristo Rajna Parikshita Pratyahatam Subahuvit Pritatma Sruyatam Iti
Sutta Uvacha Saevam Rishivaryoyam Krishto Rajna Parikshita Pratyahatam Subahuvit Pritatma Sruyatam Iti
Sutta Uvacha Saevam Rishivaryoyam Krishto Rajna Parikshita Pratyahatam Subahuvit Pritatma Sruyatam Iti
Mataji's, ladies. Suta Uvacha. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Sah, he, Evam, thus, Rishi Varya, the great Rishi, Ayam, Shukadeva Goswami, Pristaha, being questioned, Rajna, by the king, Parikshita, Maharaj Parikshit, Prati, to, Aha, replied, Tam, unto the king, Subahuvit, highly experienced, Priti Atma, fully satisfied, Sruyatam, please hear me, Iti, thus. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Shukadeva Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus, being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively. So we are going to text 6, which has a short purport. I'll just read the text once and then go immediately to the translation and purport. Sri Shuka Uvacha Yada tu raja swasutam asadhun Ushnan dharmena vinasta dristihi Bhraturyavisthasya sutan vibandhun Praveshya laksha bhavane dadhaha. Translation and purport. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons. And thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest sons was a greater blindness than his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of sight does not bar one from spiritual progress. But when one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental to the progressive path of human life. Translation again. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons. And thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. So I'm told that this temple before becoming a temple, used to be a badminton court. In the early days, one of the first temples I visited, which was in Montreal in Canada, was a bowling alley. So I'm kind of reminded of Montreal. Utility is a principle. We can use everything in Krishna's service. So it's my very first visit to this temple. It's very nice to see how it has become transformed. As Prabhupada would say, every temple is like an oasis in the desert, spiritual. It becomes completely a spiritual place because Krishna, Gurnitai, is in the center, and everyone is meant to be engaged in the Lord's service. So Srimad Bhagavatam is offering us everyday opportunities to ponder over topics which are of great importance to all of us. Here we are reading about the blindness of Dhritarashtra. 2 levels of blindness. He was physically blind, which, as Prabhupada mentions, is not a deterrent to become spiritually enlightened. But when one is spiritually blind, means too much influenced by, as in the case of Dhritarashtra, by his impious sons, headed by Duryodhana, then one's whole life actually becomes spoiled. In one of many important instructions given by one of our foremost, Mahajans, we have 12 Mahajans whom we follow. Mahajana Jenagata Sapantaha. So Srila Narada Muni gives a very elaborate presentation on the subject matter of dharma. Because to become spiritually enlightened means to know and understand in depth, isn't it? In detail and in fullness the meaning of dharma. One of the most important instructions that Narada Muni gives at the very beginning of his presentation to Yudhishthira Maharaj in the 11th chapter actually of the 7th canto. Dharma mulam hi bhagavan sarva veda mayo harihi smritam chatadidam rajan yena chatma prasiditi. That dharma is actually the essence. All Vedic literatures point to that need of understanding dharma, and the center or the root of dharma is, of course, Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And very important instruction that Narada Muni is stressing, Smritam Shat Vidam Rajan. Smriti. Those who are fortunate to actually come in contact with the knowledge of dharma, their primary goal and objective, we could say their daily concentration, their daily effort should be to deepen their understanding of what actually is dharma. And that is why, of course, we are meant to congregate together. That is why we're meant to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, because dharma as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita also, is something that is very mysterious, something that is very confidential. And even for devotees, even, let's begin with just transcendentalists, because devotees are in the special category of transcendentalists. But for transcendentalists, the subject matter, and we see probably in a place like India, where spirituality has always been in the forefront. India is the land of dharma, isn't it? Punya Bhumi, most pious place, the most sacred place in the whole universe, actually, and so many references are there in the Shastra. And now Kumbh Mela is going on. How many have been to the Kumbh Mela? Anyone? How many planning to go? Okay, one person has been. Anyone planning to go? There's still a few days, yeah. So in the Kumbh Mela we see so many different, maybe some persons are not supposed to go. Gotta be careful. That's why I didn't see too many hands up. And don't want to spark any controversy. But in a place like Kumbh Mela, I had the good fortune many years ago to attend Kumbh Mela in Prayag. At that time it was Allahabad, right? So we see so many varieties of spiritualists, isn't it? And so very few actually are Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are form actually a very special category of all the transcendentalists, Vaishnav understanding, Vaishnav philosophy, Vaishnav Siddhanta, the tattva that is especially presented by our Vaishnavacharyas is very, very unique and not so easy to grasp. So since there is reference here to blindness, spiritual blindness, I would like to maybe for my own purification try to elaborate a little bit on one aspect of dharma which Srila Prabhupada spoke about, I would say, quite extensively, and which is also referred to in many, many places in the Bhagavatam, but amazingly enough, various aspects of that, I would say, dimension of dharma in many ways escapes us. And I suppose it's an attempt, because when we attend Bhagavatam class, it's not only those who are hearing the Bhagavatam class, which is the majority of people in the class, because there's only generally one speaker. So, but it's not only those who are hearing Bhagavatam class who benefit, Prabhupada explains. The speaker, in trying to present and clarify the subject matter that is being discussed, is also engaged in the learning process. So in other words, this is Bhagavatam class are beneficial for all, for those who hear and those who happen to be speaking. So the subject matter of dharma in itself is not so easy to address. And from the Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna explains how this knowledge is very confidential. It is very confidential, it is very mysterious. And it's only relatively recently that I'm personally, as as someone who's endeavoring to practice Krishna consciousness and to understand more clearly, especially what our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada wanted us to understand and wanted us to actually demonstrate, because actually we can only demonstrate in practicality, isn't it? Based on what we understand. That is called Gyan and Vigyan. Gyan is easy enough. We can acquire a certain amount of knowledge, both material and spiritual, but the actual application of that knowledge, that is actually the test, isn't it? Vigyan. And there's a wonderful verse, of course, that is emphasizing this in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. This Gyan and Vigyan can only come when the consciousness is purified. It is only possible when we become situated in the mode of goodness. So that verse, which is, I'm sure, known by many devotees, Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vigyanam mukta sanghasya pavijayati. Yes. So, in other words, unless one becomes purified in consciousness, even without becoming transcendental, means at least coming to the mode of goodness, isn't it? When we come to the mode of goodness, which is the 5th level in the practice of, let's say, the 9 levels of bhakti, nistha, steadiness, then we can nicely begin to practice devotional service. So, when we begin to practice devotional service, Krishna notices and he begins to reciprocate and to help us actually deepen our understanding. So when it comes to dharma, see, as devotees, we generally understand dharma, refer to dharma in terms of this spiritual dimension, in terms of the science of bhakti, the science of devotional service, because that is actually the essence of dharma. But and that, of course, all of us, anyone who's attending Bhagavatam class, anyone who's chanting the holy name, is on the path, is practicing bhakti. There's a whole other level of dharma which I want to address this morning, because it's like all of us, we're engaged in different activities in Krishna consciousness. Some are more maybe inclined to distribute books, some are more inclined to worship the deities on the altar. There's unlimited ways that we can be engaged, which is one of the wonderful aspects of Krishna consciousness. We can and we should find what is the best way that inspires us more and most to be engaged in the mission of Krishna consciousness. So, dharma, we need to understand, is not only referring to spiritual subject matters. Dharma, because Krishna does not only create the spiritual world, and the evidence and the proof is that we are here in the material world. Isn't it? So Krishna also creates this material, it's Krishna's, we call Bahir Anga Shakti. This is an external energy. And this external energy of Krishna is similar to his spiritual energy, also not so easy to understand. One of the important things we should try to understand actually is that in the similar way that Krishna's spiritual energy is full of so many different aspects to to be known, to be discovered, to be realized. In a similar way, Krishna's material energy, and part of that aspect of Krishna's material energy, which is important for us as devotees, is what Prabhupada and what Shastra refers to as Varnashrama Dharma. And inasmuch as we want to be, disconnected ultimately with the material world and go back to the spiritual world, until and unless we become completely disconnected with the material energy, we need to understand the workings of that material energy. We need to understand that Krishna has a plan, isn't it? Perfection of a disciple is to understand the plan of his spirit, of his guru, the mission of his spiritual master, the intention and the mood and mentality of his spiritual master. All of us, being members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we are, not only are we indebted to the founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, but to show and demonstrate our indebtedness to him, we need to endeavor to understand Prabhupada's desire for spreading actually Krishna consciousness. And it is actually meant to be understood on these two levels of, we're just giving a short seminar on this, of what is called spiritual swadharma and material swadharma. And most of us, generally, we focus on the spiritual aspect of dharma, which is how to practice nicely every day our devotional life, devotional service, which is connected with things that we all are familiar with in terms of chanting the holy name, associating with devotees, taking Krishna prasadam, etc., etc. What we generally less understand, because we don't actually demonstrate that, is this other dimension that Prabhupada, for which Prabhupada actually gave many important instructions. And it's of great importance, especially for those who are in leadership position. And in many ways, actually, anyone who's a devotee is a leader, because he's meant to represent this philosophy. He's meant to actually demonstrate that philosophy and show it, explain it to others. So within our society, Prabhupada, many years ago, I'm sure many have heard or read, he wanted that we revive, re-establish Vedic culture. What does it mean to establish Vedic culture? It means not only taking up the process of bhakti or devotional service, but actually in our daily lives, in our occupations, in the way we make money, to just come down to earth, something very practical that every day. How many are grihasthas here? Yeah, largely we have grihasthas that make up our different congregation and communities. So what is meant to be the ideal way in which householders are meant, we say in English, to make a living? So according to Narada Muni, in, again, the 7th canto, how many are familiar with those instructions given by Narada Muni in the 7th canto, chapters 11 to 15 specifically? Or I'll just say, who has read chapters 11 to 15 of the 7th canto? Yeah. It's of great importance because Narada Muni and Prabhupada, in the various instructions that are given by Narada Muni, Prabhupada gives very elaborate purports where he goes into detail in terms of what is meant to be ideal family life, what is meant to be the occupation of the majority of our householders. So actually a lot of this is connected with knowledge that is possibly less cultivated. Why? Because it has to do with some material subject matters. And we generally, I would say, shy away from things that we think are material. The point I'm trying to make is that our Vedic literatures, not only does it contain spiritual topics, but it contains material subject matters, isn't it? The Vedas are divided into what is called Shruti and Smriti, and both have their importance. Matter of fact, unless we know about Smriti, we will not properly be able to apply a lot of the spiritual knowledge that is there. What I'm trying to explain is probably not easily, I guess it depends on individuals here, but there's a dimension of dharma, maybe I'll try to present it in this way. There's a dimension of dharma within our society which is missing, which is lacking, and which is in many ways hurting us, and which in many ways is not in keeping with Srila Prabhupada's desire. And that, what Prabhupada speaks about 50% of his mission yet to be fulfilled, that of establishing Varnashrama Dharma, that is a significant statement. And that is something that we have a responsibility or obligation as devotees to try and understand. See, our Vedic culture is based on specific sciences that are meant to, let's say, shape the way we live. They're meant to shape society. Modern day society, as we know, is being directed and governed by persons who are less familiar with the knowledge of the Bhagavatam or the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore we who are devotees are meant to introduce that knowledge, but again, not only the spiritual knowledge, but the material knowledge. We need to understand, for example, what does it mean? What does it mean when we say that Vedic culture is primarily an agrarian-based culture? Just keeping to this particular statement, if somebody is asking, I am asking, what is your understanding of Vedic culture being agrarian-based culture? Would anyone like to venture to answer the question? So many references are there, and so many examples are there as well. How Vedic culture is meant to be, or is, when it is properly established, primarily an agrarian-based culture. Agrarian means connected with the land, right? For those who may not know the word agrarian. Agrarian means connected with cows and land. So what does that mean? One hand, yes.
Simple living.
Huh?
Simple living.
Simple living, yes. Can one elaborate on that a little bit?
It also teaches us how to surrender.
Huh?
It teaches us how, when we're connected to land, for example, agriculture is also there. So agriculture cannot flourish if the dependence is not on Lord, the rains and other things. So it teaches us how to be, how
Okay.
to surrender. It
Yes.
teaches us that's our word.
Teaches us how to depend on the Lord.
Yes.
Yes, yes. What else?
No exploitation of the nature.
What is it?
No exploitation of the nature.
Towards?
No exploitation of nature. No exploitation.
Okay, yes. No exploitation of nature, yes. It means learning to live in harmony and giving proper respect to nature, to the natural resources of nature, yes. So, I guess my question is, how well or how much are we as a society or as communities in our different, wherever we are located, how much are we addressing this particular dimension of Dharma? How much are we presently thinking, and what plans, if any, do we have to actually address this particular dimension of Dharma? Or is there, I guess a question to ask also, is there actually any necessity to address that dimension of Dharma or not? If our position is that, well, it's not really so important, then we can just close the book and end the class, I suppose. The point I'm trying to make is that actually there is very much, when Srila Prabhupada was speaking on the subject matter, which he did quite extensively, he felt, and it is because it has been recorded, he still feels that it is very much important. In other words, we as devotees need to give more time and attention in trying to understand how this aspect of Dharma is something that our founder Acharya felt that we should be addressing and doing something very concrete. There is one important, actually many years ago, way back in 1996. Why is 1996 an important year within our society? Centennial, yes, Srila Prabhupada's centennial. So at that time, actually, the GBC commissioned a number of devotees to do some research on community development. And their research was compiled, the findings was compiled in one book that I have here, which is entitled Speaking About Varnashrama. Has anyone heard about this book? Okay. This is basically all the compilation of Prabhupada's statements regarding Varnashrama. When Prabhupada says that 50% of my mission is yet to be fulfilled, we who are members of the society established by Srila Prabhupada should start thinking, well, why did Prabhupada make that statement, and what are we doing about trying to fulfill that 50%? Otherwise, it means that we are not caring for Prabhupada's statements, isn't it? And therefore, it's important for us to at least know that there is this aspect of Prabhupada's mission that has yet to be properly addressed. As I mentioned a little earlier, to even talk about dharma in itself is not so easy, because the subject matter, whether on the spiritual level or on the material level, requires some effort on our part because it's a very involved subject matter, isn't it? Again, to practice, to put into practice spirituality, or the different aspects of spiritual swadharma is not so easy. And in the same way, to understand and to put it into practice what is meant by varnashrama dharma requires some effort. So therefore, I would highly recommend that actually devotees take some time to, now gradually we're having groups of devotees actually in different centers who are maybe once a week giving some time to reading and discussing the subject matter. It's actually extremely critical that we as devotees and that we as a society address and give the necessary time to understand what does it mean in practicality. Of course, in a short 45-minute or even 1 hour to address the topic may, in many ways, doesn't give justice to the topic, but at least we should know that it's something important. Actually, India is the only country so far that has established a ministry for addressing the whole aspect of varnashrama. There is no other country so far that has addressed. And one aspect which is very important that can help us to gradually understand is by going to villages. I don't know the programs or activities here in your temple, but if devotees actually take up this initiative of just going to villages, we will begin to understand more what is the situation. Our whole Vedic culture in so many ways is actually dependent on how well we care for our villages, because the basis of the Vedic culture is especially found actually in villages. So I just wanted to bring up some of these, this main aspect in terms of this dimension of dharma within our society. And initially, especially if one has not really given the time to discuss the matter, it may seem somewhat remote to many of our devotees. My humble request is that devotees take some time to at least hear what our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, has said on the subject matter. We have a few minutes maybe for some possible comments or questions on the subject matter, which might be helping us address the topic at hand. Yeah.
Anybody has any questions? Nobody's hand, but
Yes. Mike is there? Yeah.
Maharaj, you asked about what else we can talk about the agrarian way of looking at the Vedic
Yes.
culture. I think if you look around, all the major issues that we are currently facing, currently we are having two wars going in parallel. The number of flags in UN are increasing. Everywhere the border issues are there. So this is all just because we have over abused the fair share of resources that have been given to us, and we try to go into others' territory. So that non-acceptance, that denial, that blunt no to what's been given to us is causing more and more issues. So all our current issues are just because we could not accept the Vedic way of looking at the things.
Yes, we have very severely exploited the natural resources on the planet because basically we are, in general, the population is very much being, as Prabhupada would explain, misdirected, very grossly misdirected society. We have a country like America, which has having maybe less than 5% of the population in the world, but that is using up over 30% of the natural energies. So there's all of these disparities that exist, and the root problem is that those who are in leadership position are not knowing or not understanding what is meant to be, how we are meant to properly utilize the natural resources of nature. And of course, Prabhupada mentions how the root problem in modern society is that people don't know, don't believe that the goal of life is to become self-realized. When we don't believe in God, when we don't understand the primary purpose of life, then we simply exploit, and then we create all kinds of animosity and rivalry between individuals and between nations, etc., which is what is taking place in the world today. So those who are having knowledge, means the devotees in particular, not only we need, sometimes we hear the statement that Krishna consciousness is giving us all the spiritual solutions to the problems of life, which is true, but not only is Krishna consciousness giving us all the spiritual solutions, but also Krishna consciousness is meant to give us also the material solutions to the existing problems that are there in society. So it means, one of the instructions, important instructions that Prabhupada gave in that context was to establish educational system that he referred to as Varnashram College. Varnashram College is for those of us, which means the majority of us, who have not been brought up in the Vedic culture in terms of receiving like Gurukul education, and therefore who are missing, lacking, not knowing, not even knowing some of the basics in terms of principles of dharma, in terms of how to handle and organize society. So in other words, if we simply are focused on the spiritual dimension, not knowing and understanding the dynamics on the material level, then we are part of the problem, because we're not showing what is meant to be the material solution. So the solution to the problems of modern day society are not only in terms of spiritual knowledge, but also our Shastra is teaching us a small example, which is a major problem in the world today in terms of agriculture, isn't it? We've completely deviated from what is meant to be natural farming, natural agriculture. And of course that's intimately connected with how we look after cows, and we don't, isn't it? So that's directly connected with one of the basic Vedic sciences, which is called the science of economy. So in Varnashram College, Prabhupada wanted us to introduce what is Vedic economy. Do we know what is Vedic economy? We are meant to represent Vedic culture. Do we know what is Vedic economy? We may know theoretically, we may have some knowledge of what is Vedic economy. Are we demonstrating what is Vedic economy? What is the Vedic economy? What is the formula given in our Shastra for Vedic economy? Means Vedic sustainable scientific economy, which is meant to meet in the most simple, non-violent way all of our necessities of life. Prabhupada makes the following comment. I'll just relate this point. When Yudhisthira Maharaj on his bed of arrows begins to instruct, when Bhishma Dev rather, on his bed of arrows begins to instruct Yudhisthira Maharaj, what's the first instruction he gives him? He talks to him about the importance of following the system of Varna and Ashrama. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada, it's in the, I believe, first canto, 9th, that chapter, Grandfather Vishwadev leaving his body. In that first line of the purport, Prabhupada expresses how Krishna's system of Varna and Ashrama is meant to actually accelerate our ability to develop spiritual qualities. In other words, when we understand and follow Krishna's plan, Krishna's material plan in terms of how we should be living, what kind of education we should be getting, what kind of occupation is more ideal, this is all meant to actually help us more easily, more quickly become self-realized, which is the goal of life. So if we miss this aspect, then that means that we will take longer and it will be more complicated and more difficult to attain what is meant to be the goal of life. So in other words, Varnashram Dharma, which may seem, well it is, actually it's a material arrangement, but it's a material arrangement, the ideal material arrangement for bringing us to our primary goal and purpose of life. And if we miss that, that means that things will be delayed. And we will not be, as a society, able to actually provide the kind of guidance and assistance that we're meant to provide to humanity in general. And for that matter, to our own children. To our own children. We are doing a disservice to our own children if we don't know the basics that are being taught by Sri Prabhupada. Yes, Mike. Mike is right here, coming. Hey. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, I want to ask your question only that you asked what it means by agrarian culture for.
Yes,
You can
yes.
explain it, and the other question is what is difference between Varnashram and Dev Varnashram, and how we can contribute, what are the opportunity available in ISKCON for it. I hope my question is clear. If you want, I can repeat.
I think your first part is in terms of what does it mean? What
First, First question, your same question you asked us, what is the actual reply for that?
You're returning the question.
And the second is, what is difference between
Varnashram
Varnashram and
and
Dev
Varnashram.
Varnashram, and what are opportunities there in ISKCON where we can contribute?
Yes. Just very briefly, agrarian society or agrarian culture is where viticulture is agrarian culture, agrarian-based culture, cow-based culture. Means the majority of people, and in our case means the majority of devotees, live in the country, not in the cities. Their prescribed duties are related to agriculture. This is viticulture. And we will not be able to understand this unless we systematically receive and hear the knowledge that is there in the Shastra that Prabhupada recommended that we take up. I could elaborate more on that, but just briefly. The difference between Varnashram and Daiva Varnashram. Daiva Varnashram, the word Daiva has been added quite recently, maybe since the time of Srimad Bhagavatham Thakur, to highlight how, although the system of Varnashrama is a material system, material arrangement given by Krishna, created by Krishna, Daiva, which means for us, because it's given by our Vaishnava Acharyas, Daiva means Krishna in the center and the practice of Bhakti, devotional service to that personality, Krishna. So Daiva Varnashrama is that system where every member of either the social order, the Varnas, or the spiritual orders, ashramas, are all focused and centered on practicing Bhakti, devotional service. Keeping in mind what is meant to be our ideal means of occupation. So Daiva Varnashrama means it's the same system of Varnashrama, but with the focus and the center being Krishna. And that means that anyone, whether one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, anyone within that system, with that understanding, who is cultivating devotional service, can become a self-realized soul and become qualified to go back to the spiritual world. This is the Daiva Varnashrama. Actually, that is the original Varnashram system. It's just that for so many centuries, it has been abused and exploited to such an extent that many people don't even want to talk about Varnashram. To the extent that, as we know here in India, if you address somebody as Shudra, you can be arrested or fined, isn't it? So this is how deteriorated the whole system has become. But the system in itself is the most scientific and the most glorious system. And this is part of the challenge, which is a major challenge. Similar challenge was there during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, where the very word Vaishnava or Vaishnavism during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time was a dirty word. Dirty word means it meant simply engaged in all kinds of illicit, sinful activities. Because in the name of being a Vaishnava, people at that time, majority of people were not following the proper teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So by the efforts of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he re-established, and this is what we are having today, his efforts, and then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's efforts, and Prabhupada, our own founder Acharya, re-established the glories of Vaishnavism through a lot of effort. Now we have this it is a major challenge. Well, and the longer we don't take it up, then the more difficult it actually becomes. Our challenge is to give the proper understanding of Varna and Ashrama, and to demonstrate that in our personal, daily lives. So therefore, unless we understand that actually Vedic culture, that's why the whole modern, Prabhupada refers to modern edition of we've been on a kind of an experiment for the last 200 years. We've been on a tangent. We've been deviating in a major way, and most people are just not aware of it. And unfortunately, many of our devotees are also not catching this, not grasping how modern decivilization, by promoting more and more industrialization, urbanization, is actually, these activities in this direction is based on principles of adharma. So unless we know what is dharma, how we will be able to correct the situation? It's not something that immediately can be fully appreciated or understood. And even when we begin to understand it, how to remedy the situation is also a major challenge. But unless we become awakened to that reality, that something within our society as devotees that Prabhupada spoke about is missing, then we will not be able to actually understand, or put in another way, we will not be able to properly succeed in establishing Prabhupada's mission. I mean, it's a major statement that Prabhupada made, that 50% of his mission is yet to be fulfilled. And it should mean something for all of us. And if it doesn't, then that's unfortunate. Does that help a little bit in answering?
Yes.
Okay.
You can also make a question.
Yes.
So we need to thank Bhakti Maharaj for beautifully presenting the importance of Varnashram and how as ISKCON we have to move towards the direction to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's desire and instruction.
Thank you.
So the book that Maharaj was showing is available at the table outside the temple hall. So devotees can go there, and in case you want, Maharaj can also, Maharaj will be here for another 10 minutes, and Maharaj can also offer his autograph.
Yes.
Okay, let us thank Srimad Bhagavatham Maharaj by once chanting the Hare Krishna Maha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare.
Jai Guru Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Sri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
कृष्ण सब भक्तों के लिए ब्रेकफास्ट प्रसाद नीचे सर के ऊपर हरे कृष्ण
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.